UFC President Dana White just announced 2 banger title fights for the first pay-per-view of 2025. It goes down on January 18th in California. The main event is Islam Makhachev versus Arman Tsarukyan 2 for the lightweight title. Fight we knew was coming, but it's still an absolute banger in the lightweight division. And then the co-main event is Dvalishvili versus Umar Nurmagomedov for the bantamweight title. What an unbelievably stacked card just with the 2 title fights. But there's a bunch of other great fights on the card as well. We're going to look at the full card later in the video. But also, when Dana White posted his video announcement on social media, he said 2 very interesting things that maybe some people didn't pick up on. One thing was about Islam Makhachev. We're going to watch that later in the video. And also another thing he said about Dvalishvili. We're going to break it all down this video. Let's start off with Islam Makhachev versus Arman Tsarukyan 2. Absolutely love this fight. For those of you who don't know, early on in their careers, back in 2019, they fought each other. Islam Makhachev came out on top, won the fight via decision. And that's really Arman Tsarukyan's last loss. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, what about Mateusz Gamrot? In my opinion, it was a robbery. And I think one of the judges scored, I think it was the 4th round. I might be off on what I'm saying here, but you get the point, the gist of what I'm saying. One of the judges scored a round that Arman clearly won with a knockdown for Gamrot. And that judge, had they scored that round properly, it would have went to Arman. And Arman, while it was a close fight, Arman won that fight, in my opinion. So without that loss, his last loss is Islam Makhachev back in 2019. And without that loss, without the Gamrot loss, he's on a 10-fight win streak right now, which is insanity. Now, he's still on a decent win streak. He's coming off the win over Charles Oliveira. And then you have Islam Makhachev, who is the pound-for-pound #1 fighter in the world right now. He's on a 14-fight win streak. He's coming off that 5th-round stoppage against Dustin Poirier. Before that, brutally chinned and ended the career of Alexander Volkanovski. I say that as a bit of an exaggeration, but you get my point. Before that, beat Alexander Volkanovski, who was pound-for-pound #1 via decision. Some people thought it was controversial. It really wasn't that controversial. Before that, went out there and finished Charles Oliveira. I mean, Islam is the definition of line him up and I'll knock him down, even though he hasn't been getting enough credit for those wins over Volkanovski. And now people want him to fight Topuria. And he's like, well, why am I going to fight Topuria? Because everyone's just going to say, I only beat featherweights now. You know, Volkanovski was a great champion at featherweight, undefeated for so many years. Pound for pound #1. Islam goes out there and beats him twice and it means nothing. And now they want him to fight Topuria. But either way, he's fighting Arman Tsarukyan at UFC 311. And this fight truly is a banger. And I know a lot of people are going to underestimate Arman Tsarukyan. But if you told me right now that Islam Makhachev was going to lose in the next 2 years to someone currently in the UFC lightweight rankings, it would have to be Arman. I think Arman is the guy that poses the biggest threat to Islam Makhachev. Now, that's not to say I'm going to pick him in this fight. But you look at Arman, he gets better with every single fight. He's still young, in his prime. He has knockout power in his hands. His hands are getting better. He has a very excellent kicking game as well. His defensive grappling is unbelievable. His scramblings are unbelievable. And also, you know, you go back to the Gamrot fight, they were scrambling nonstop. Gamrot was trying to grapple him nonstop. And while Gamrot had some success, Arman was able to defensively grapple and scramble the majority of the fight without gassing out. He went a hard 5 rounds. And then in his last fight, he beats Charles Oliveira. Some people say it was controversial. I didn't think it was really all that controversial. The only thing of substance that Charles Oliveira did in that fight was go for guillotines. Didn't land a lot of shots. Arman was able to out-grapple him. He wasn't able to find a submission like Islam was. But ultimately, Arman went out there and I don't want to say dominated Charles, but really shut Charles Oliveira down. And I think he's the biggest threat currently in the lightweight division to Islam Makhachev. But ultimately, do I think Arman gets it done in the rematch? You know, I don't really think, I think there's going to be a lot of people going in this fight that try to overanalyze. Oh, this is a rematch from 2019 and Islam won. By the way, it was a very competitive fight. I believe it was on short notice, by the way, as well. And I think a lot of people try to derive too much meaning from rematches, from the original fight that happened years ago. They did it with Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad. And I said, look, that first fight meant nothing. That was so many years ago. They've evolved since then. And also in that particular fight, obviously it ended abruptly and it was a no contest, but you get my point. I don't think you can look back at 2019, I believe it was April of 2019, to predict the future, because both of them have gotten leaps and bounds better. But if I had to give you an early prediction right now, I'm going Islam Makhachev. I don't think there's a guy on the roster that can beat Islam, to be quite honest. I really don't. In the lightweight division, it's just so tough. I think if you're going to beat Islam, basically you have to win with a fluke KO or wait for Islam to get washed up. That's how you have to beat him. Now, I think Arman would have the best chance to defend the takedowns and land on the feet, but we saw it against Dustin Poirier. People were hyping up Dustin Poirier for defending takedowns, but he was getting outstruck on the feet. Islam Makhachev may be the best striker in the UFC. Yes, I said it. He may be the best striker in the UFC, period. You can blame it on the threat of the grappling. At the end of the day, this is MMA. It's MMA striking. It's not technical boxing. He went out there and outstruck Dustin Poirier, one of the best boxers in the UFC. He went out there in the first fight against Alexander Volkanovski and outstruck him on the feet. Okay? And that's not even including his dominant grappling game and jiu-jitsu and his submission ability, his submission offense on the ground. So even if Arman is able to shuck off the takedowns, Islam's going to outstrike him. And, maybe Arman has more power in his hands. I think that's subjective. I don't even think that's a guarantee either. I think Arman's going to have to clip him with a big shot, but look how defensively sound Islam is on the feet. Look how defensively sound he is. I mean, he got touched by like one shot against Dustin in the 4th round and got cut open and bloodied, and everyone was like, oh my God, I can't believe we're seeing Islam's blood, and he got cut, and they were over-hyping Poirier. You go back to the first Volkanovski fight. Volkanovski was able to defend a lot of the grappling. He was getting outstruck on the feet. And that's why people's minds were blown, because they were like, well, Islam's not winning that much in the grappling, so he must be losing the fight, because they had already painted that narrative in their head. I think Islam is the superior striker. I think Islam is the superior grappler. I think Islam has the superior jiu-jitsu. I think the only advantage Arman really has, and by the way, it's close. Everything's very close. But the only thing Arman probably has is a power advantage. I think he has more of an ability to one-shot KO you. But I mean, even you look at Islam versus Volkanovski in the second fight, now it was on short notice, put him out with a head kick. Put him out with a head kick. He hurt Charles Oliveira on the feet before the sub. But I think Arman is a legitimate threat. I think people are going to underestimate Arman. I would not be shocked if Arman pulled it off. But I'm fairly confident in Islam Makhachev getting it done, mixing in the grappling, landing on the feet, pumping the jab. Every single fight out, Islam's better. I think Islam's the pound-for-pound #1 fighter in the world. And I believe he beats Arman. So if I had to predict right now, I'm going to go Islam by decision. I think he beats Arman by decision. Now, I want to check out a clip. Well, actually, I want to check out 2 clips from the announcement with Dana White. Okay, the first clip we're going to check out is regarding Islam Makhachev. And then the second clip we're going to check out is about Umar, but we'll get to that when we talk about the Umar-Merab fight. But listen to this. This is straight from Dana White's Twitter. This was his social media announcement. I'm not going to play the whole thing, because previously in a video, I showed the announcement and they copyrighted me. So it was very annoying. But listen to this. This is what he had to say when promoting an Islam Makhachev pay-per-view. Listen to what he had to say.
It will be headlined by the pound-for-pound #1 ranked fighter in the world. And
what did he say right there? What was that, Dana? You're promoting a fight. What were you saying? Hold on. What is Islam? What is Islam again?
Headlined by the pound-for-pound #1 ranked fighter in the world and lightweight champion Islam Makhachev.
Pound for pound #1 fighter in the world, Islam Makhachev. So it's awfully convenient when he's promoting the first Volkanovski fight. He says it's the battle for the #1 pound for pound. Then he goes out and discredits Islam left and right. Say, John Jones is the pound for pound #1, blah, 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 blah. Then now when he's promoting another pay-per-view, he's got to promote Islam as the pound for pound #1, which he is, fair enough. But I just don't understand Dana going out and trying to discredit Islam left and right. But I've covered that in countless other videos. But it was nice to hear right from Dana White's mouth, Islam is the pound for pound #1 instead of sucking off Jones. Now, the next clip we're going to take a look at is regarding Merab Dvalishvili defending his bantamweight title against Umar Nurmagomedov. Because first off, I love this fight. Second off, I love it as a co-main event. It's absolutely unbelievable. But third off, there's been a narrative that I've struggled to articulate on the channel. I've covered it a bit, But I understand fan sentiment quite a bit. But a lot of people are saying, Merab is ducking Umar, this and that. I'm going to break it down a little bit more in detail in this video. But this is what Dana White had to say about Merab versus Umar coming to fruition for the bantamweight title. We're just going to check out a couple seconds of this announcement.
Came into the office late last night, told us that he is tired of listening to Umar disrespect him and wanted to make this fight happen as soon as possible. We called Umar.
So there you go. And then Umar said yes. Called Umar. Umar said yes. Listen, I think the Merab-Umar narrative has been rather tricky. I think a lot of fans have ran with certain narratives that aren't necessarily true, but I do also understand. Let me put it this way. Every time Merab opens his mouth, it seems like recently he's just been putting his foot in it. I've called out Merab for some of the kind of ducking behavior, some of the ducking sentiment he's been putting out there publicly, but I've also said, look, Merab's going to take the fight. Merab's not going to turn down Umar if it's offered to him. I've covered this. I covered this recently in an Aljo video. I said, look, it's clear that Merab has jealousy towards Umar because Umar got a quicker rise up the ladder to a title because the UFC treated Merab like shit and didn't give him a title shot when he deserved it. But that was it for Merab. He's not scared of Umar by any means. And I knew this fight was going to come to fruition, which is why I didn't make a lot of videos every time Merab said something dumb in the media, because I knew ultimately he's going to take the fight. But I think a lot of people now, but yeah, Merab was forced by the UFC. Let's pump the brakes on that. It was September when he took that belt off of Sean O'Malley. I mean, you have Tim Welch in the corner. Just breathe, Shug. Shug, just breathe. It's almost over, Shug. It's almost over, Shug. Can you, first off, does Umar know that Merab mixes in double leg takedowns? Can someone get that information to Umar and his coaches? Because Tim Welch didn't know. But either way, the point I'm trying to make here is he won the belt in September. It is now December, okay? It is now December, so you have all of September if you want to count all of September, even though it was midway. All of October, all of November, 3 months, and now his next fight is announced. So within 5 months, Merab is taking on Umar Nurmagomedov and defending his bantamweight title. So I think we have to applaud Merab. I think there could have been some sketchy behavior where he could have said, you know what, I don't want to fight until March, when he knows Umar didn't want to fight, and people would have been like, well, screw Umar. And I think also, I'm just happy that Umar's getting the title shot, because there was people using the anti-Dagestani narratives. Oh, he got Dagestani privilege. You happen to fight one of the toughest guys in the world in Corey Sandhagen, and going out there and absolutely dominating him isn't worthy of a title shot. So there was people pushing that narrative. Then you had Merab publicly saying, I want to fight Figgy. I want to fight Jan. He's calling out Jan. I did a video about Aljamain Sterling on a podcast recently acting like Jan was the deserving number one contender. The deserving number one contender was Umar Nurmagomedov. 18-0. This is a banger matchup. 18-0, coming off a dominant win against Corey Sandhagen. 18-fight win streak. Obviously, 18-0, never lost. Merab's on an 11-fight win streak, which could be a 12-fight win streak, because technically I don't think he lost to Ricky Simone. It was a horrible call by the ref, acting like he was unconscious because the doctor had him lay down afterwards. But nonetheless, and then a split decision loss before that. Nonetheless, Merab's on a long winning streak, has looked unbelievable. Umar's on an unbelievable winning streak, undefeated. And now they're meeting in the co-main event of 311 that already has a banger main event. I love this fight. Stylistically, it's very interesting, because Merab is a volume grappler where he just goes out there and just pressures you and shoots takedown after takedown after takedown. And then you have Umar Nurmagomedov, which a lot of fans are kind of confused and think he's primarily a grappler. But, he does have grappling, don't get me wrong, but he is an elite level striker and primarily uses his kicks to go out there and outstrike guys. He outstruck Corey Sandhagen. Now, it wasn't because he mixed in the grappling, yes, but at the end of the day, this is MMA. Now, where I think this fight is going to be very interesting is, can Merab get any control time? That is Merab's recipe to victory, is control time. He took down O'Malley. He ragdolled O'Malley, had his coach saying, just breathe, man. It's almost over. It's almost over. He was kissing Merab, kissing Tim Welch's buddy's back. And he was just controlling him. I don't think he can do that to Umar. So it really comes down to what happens on the feet. And you look back at some of Merab's performances. Marlon Moraes caught him on the chin, hurt him, almost finished him. You look at the Henry Cejudo fight, got caught on the chin by Henry Cejudo. Umar, while he doesn't have like crazy one-punch KO power, he has very good striking, and it improves every single time. And I think Merab's going to have trouble just controlling him nonstop, and I think Umar will be able to get off damage when he does avoid the takedowns. And so for an early prediction for this fight, I'm going Umar Nurmagomedov. That's what my gut's been telling me this whole time. My gut was telling me Merab the whole time going into the O'Malley fight, and then I changed my pick, and then I regretted it. I don't think Merab is scared that he's going to lose. I don't believe that he was really forced by the UFC. This was the fight that made sense. Merab tried to use anti-Dagestani, which is also anti-Caucasus fighter sentiment, which is funny because it was used against him. He tried to use fan sentiment to try to campaign for another fight, but at the end of the day, whatever fight was offered to him, I think he was ultimately going to take. He wasn't going to scratch and claw and try to get his way out of fighting Umar, but he was trying to push fan sentiment in a certain direction, hoping that the UFC might follow suit. But at the end of the day, O'Malley ducked Merab more than Merab ducked Umar. I mean, don't forget, they booked O'Malley versus Chito too, which is a complete trash, garbage title defense for Sean O'Malley. Shouldn't even count. O'Malley should have 0 title defenses. Merab, within 5 months, is fighting Umar Nurmagomedov at UFC 311. So I don't want to hear that narrative too much. I understand why fans are conjuring that up because Merab, every time he opens his mouth, it's like he's putting his foot in it. But I think it really comes from jealousy because of how fast Umar was able to rise up the ranks. And to be quite honest, in a way, it is unfair to Merab because he was treated unfairly by the UFC. He was treated unfairly by the fans. But why would you wish that on another fighter? That's what kind of irks me about Merab. Why would you wish that on another fighter? Umar deserves the title fight, and you're trying to campaign and help fan sentiment push towards a different fight because he didn't have to scratch and claw his way like you did because the UFC treated you unfairly and pushed fake narratives about you unwilling to fight Aljamain Sterling, which he never even had the opportunity to. So then they ducked him when O'Malley won the fight. And by the way, they had O'Malley duck Merab, hoping that he would close that skill gap because they were terrified that Merab was going to beat him. And ultimately, that's what happened. But absolutely love this fight. I think it's a straight-up banger. Also, I mean, you look at Umar's last fight, or you look at Umar's overall resume, I understand people act like it's not that good, okay? But Corey Sandhagen, elite-level fighter, I think he was ranked number 2 at the time. He beat him. Bekzak Almahan's unranked. He was a debutant, which is funny even saying out loud. But Bekzak is a savage. I anticipate him to be a future ranked contender in the top 15. Hani Barcelos absolutely destroyed. Nate Maness beat up. Brian Kelleher destroyed. Sergey Morozov destroyed. Like, a lot of these guys aren't the greatest names, but he went out there and made them look like that. I mean, and he dominated Corey Sandhagen. Absolutely dominated Corey Sandhagen. Nobody really does Corey Sandhagen like that. So I think he deserves the fight. Merab, I think already Merab is the bantamweight GOAT, and if he beats Umar, he cements that. Because look at this resume. He beat Sean O'Malley. Okay, maybe that's not the greatest win, but again, that was for a title fight. Before that, beat Henry Cejudo, a former champion, beat Piotr Jan, a former champion, beat Jose Aldo, a former champion, beat Marlon Moraes, who at one point, believe it or not, was an elite-level fighter. I thought he was going to be a champion. He was beating Henry Cejudo in a vacant title fight after TJ Dillashaw got caught injecting EPO into his ass. And, you know, ultimately he fell off after that, and one of those losses was to Merab. But Merab has an incredible winning streak, and I think this is great matchmaking by the UFC, and I love that this is on the same card. By the way, I tweeted this out earlier. Look at these posters. Pretty sick. Pretty sick. I actually didn't tweet this. I posted this on Blue Sky, which I know people have some type of political affiliations with. I just downloaded it because essentially it's a Twitter clone. I don't see blocked people on my feed anymore. I don't see people dying on my feed anymore. I don't see political content on my feed anymore. So if you want to follow me, you want to create a Blue Sky, you want to follow me, tag me in something, I will follow you back. I'm looking for more people to follow back who are going to post MMA-related content if you care to check that out. Last thing I want to look at before we end the video, UFC 311. This card is unbelievable. So by the way, it goes down January 18th. It goes down Los Angeles, California. Obviously, we already talked about the main co-main event. Early prediction, I think I already said this, but I'm going Umar Nurmagomedov. I think he stuffs the takedowns. I think it'll be a close fight, but I think Umar's just going to be better on the feet. And I don't think he's going to be able to control Umar the way he was able to control O'Malley. Umar's coach will be anticipating double leg takedowns as well as single leg takedowns. So I'm going Umar Nurmagomedov to get it done, probably via decision. I think he'll probably beat Merab via decision. But there's no doubt that the UFC does not want Merab as champion, and they look at Umar as a way to get Merab off the title because O'Malley's not going to be able to do it. Let's be honest here. Then you have Jalton Almeida, Sergey Spivak. You have Yuri Prohaska versus Jamal Hill. I mean, Jamal Hill's coming fresh off that brutal KO win at Thanksgiving against his brother. Banger fight. Kevin Holland versus Rainer De Ritter. Johnny Walker, Bogdan Guskov. Peyton Talbot, Hani Barcelos. Grant Dawson versus Diego Fajeda. I'm kind of reading out the bangers. This is an incredible card. This is a banger pay-per-view to open 2025. Really looking forward to it, and I'm happy that we have two massive title fights headlining the card. What really sucks, and I might make a video on this, let me know down in the comments you want me to make a video on this. The week prior, January 11th, is a UFC Apex card, which is being headlined by Mackenzie Dern versus Amanda Hebos too, and it's a garbage card. And it makes me want to throw up. It makes me not want to even watch the sport, that we're going to have to wait 4 weeks, come back to a shit Apex card. Why couldn't we just come back to UFC 311 instead, which is straight up stacked from top to bottom? Let me know what you guys think about these two title fights. Who are you picking in these two title fights? Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time.